Alright guys, so for today, I have passed out rulers for you guys. Keep them. First of all, keep them. We're going to use them for the whole week. That's your rule. Safe. But before we start working on rulers, let's actually learn how to read them. Not that many people know. It's not that hard, but not that many people know how to read rulers. So you notice one side has inches, one side has centimeters. Let me work the inches first. So I'm going to look into inches only. So I have this ruler, zoom into inches. And as a matter of fact, on inches, from 0 to 1, if we count the spaces, there's 16. There's 16 spaces on inches. So we count them, there's 16. Notice my ruler, I have it like that. So if we go here and I count 5 spaces, you see my measurement is 5 spaces long. How long is that? What is it? Alright, let's use our head to think. So it's 5 spaces. How big is that? We're looking at inches size. Okay, you notice it's way less than 1 inch, right? It's way less than 1 inch. But if I went 5 spaces, how much is that? Like 0.5 is the one thing that comes to our mind, but that would be 0.5 if it was 10 spaces, but it's 16. So it's not 0.5 because it's 16 spaces. You see how much? Like I told you guys, it's easy, but it's not that easy at the beginning. So like if you guys are struggling, honestly, I expected you to. It's nothing against you. It's just people. Most people don't know how to read proof. Well, we read this 5. There's 16 total, so we read this as 5 over 16. Because it's 5 out of 16 spaces. All right, so let's take a look at this other space. Wait for me to come like that. This one is 12 spaces. If I count this one, it's 12 spaces. How big is that? Guys, pass out here. So I count this one is 12 spaces. How big is that? 12 16. Right? 12 over 16. If I call it 3 over 4, would that be different? 12 16 or 3 over 4, it's the same. It's the same? Alright. So now let's go here. Go for the easy one. How big is that? 1 inch. So that's nice. Okay. Now here, I'm going to go 1 and 15 spaces. What? How much is 16? There's 16 total, and I went 1 and 15 over 16. Right. Alright, so 1 and 15 over 16. We're not going to count 31 spaces, right? That would be too much. So 1 and 15 over 16. But let's learn how to read the ruler. Let's make this into an easier way. Let's change it. So notice I erased all my lines. So I came from 0 to 1 inch. I'm going to cut it into half. And as a matter of fact, this one I'm going to go with the big line. So obviously the first line is 0 half, 1 half, 2 halves, right? Or 0 over 2, 1 over 2, 2 over 2. But then the halves, I can cut it into another half each. Keep in mind my second row is going to get a little bit smaller than the first line. I'm just going to go a little bit smaller. How many little squares are there total? 4. So each of them is 1/4. My line, I'm going to read this as 0 over 4, 1 over 4, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 4 fourths. We can count it in fourths. Each fourth, I can cut it into one more half. How many squares are there total? 8. So each 1/8. And I'm going to read my lines, I'm going to read it as 0/8, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, so on and so forth, right? Then, lastly, let me cut it into half. How many do we have now? 16. And you notice how it went a little bit smaller. So each little space is 1/16. And once again, my lines, the way I will read them will be 0/16, 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, so on and so forth. Like earlier, we were at 12/16, and I said, can I call it 3/4? Because that's the line for the quarters, and I would have gone, in the quarter ones, I would have gone 0/4, 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. So it makes sense. And if you notice in your ruler, these lines between 0 and 1, they're all uneven. So they're all different because it all depends on which one we're going to use. That's why the ruler is like that. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed. More likely not, because not that many people notice. But that's how the ruler is broken down into. So now, how much is that? 5/16. Notice that this bigger line is 4. Well, I could count 4 real quick, and then 1 more. 5/16. Now, how much is this? Well, 3 1/4. Because notice how I'm not using the little lines, I'm using the older lines as a quarter. So I would have counted 0 quarters, 1/4, 2 quarters, and 3/4. That's why we were going to count it by measurements a little bit easier. Now this one, how much is that? 7 That's not quite 7. 6/12. Or can I call it 1/2? Because remember, it came down to, notice, it came down to the biggest line in the center. Obviously, that's the half. So that's why I call it 1.5. And if we count the spaces, obviously that's 8/16, which is 1/2. All right. Now, the top one is how the ruler really looked like. The bottom one is how I started it. Once again, we're talking about inches. Now, which ruler is it easier to read? The top. And the bottom one, yeah, not that quite. Why is the top one easier? Because what? They're all evenly spaced. How big the lines are. That's why the top one is easier. Once again, that's why you guys have it like that. Alright, so let's skip this. Now let's take a look at the side that has centimeters. Alright, we were looking at inches. Now let's take a look at centimeters. So centimeters, remember I told you guys from inches from 0 to 1 there were 16 spaces? Centimeters, there's 10. So it's going to be a little bit different. There's 10 spaces from 0 to 1. Alright, we can count them, but there's 10. So, how much is that? 3 out of 10. There's 1, 2, 3, so 3 out of 10. So we call that 3/10. Now, how much is that? 1. So how can we break this into 10 even spaces? I start with the 1 centimeter, and I'm going to cut it in half. And then that line, I'm going to go bigger. So if you notice on your ruler, there's little lines, the same thing, and right in the center, there's something that's a little bit bigger. That way you guys can see where the 5 is. That way you can easily count the 5. I'm not going to break each of those into into half, because then it will give me 2.5, and I'm not going to go in halves, or like 2.5. So I'm just going to say I want to cut each of them into 5 little spaces, and each of them I'm going to call it 1/10. And there's no other way I'm going to see how to break it up. So that's how the centimeters is marked. So how much is that? 3 out of 10. So we call that as a decimal part. Can we call that easy? You guys know what 3 out decimal is? Point 0.3. So 3 out of 10 in decimals, 0.3. How much is that? 1 centimeter, okay. So what you guys are going to do, let me pass out your worksheet. Alright, so what you guys are going to do, notice one side says inches, one side says centimeters. I have the one that says working with inches. So let me take a look at that first. Notice on my paper, in my case I turned it. You see, I don't know if you guys see it, but it resembles how the ruler looks like in inches from 0 to 1. So what I want to ask you guys, see at the very bottom it says unit 0 and then unit 1. That's 1 inch. Alright, once again, it's the resemblance of what a ruler looks like. So what I'm asking you guys to do, in the halves, 0, I'm going to call that 0 over 2, right? 0 halves. Right, I'm looking at the big lines now. So then I'm going to go to the next one. Obviously, that's 1 half. I'm going to go to the last one, that's 2 halves. So if I look at the halves, I see 0 halves, 1 half, and 2 halves. Then I go to the fourth. Right, I'm going to break my inch into 4 spaces. Obviously, start with the 0 fourth, right, 0 out of 4. The next one, I'm going to go 1 out of 4, right, is 1 fourth, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, and obviously 4 fourths. Alright, so that's what I do with when it's fourth. If I go to the eighth, which is the next one, right, it's going to be 8 spaces. Obviously, I'm going to start with 0 eighths, and I'll let you guys complete the rest, right, for the eighth. If I go to the 16th, which is the top part, I'm going to start with 0 over 16, 1 over 16, all the way till 16 over 16, right? So I'll let you guys do that. And then for the decimal, get a calculator and type that in. Round it up to 3 decimal places. Or actually, better yet, round it up to 4 decimal places. Some of them might give you like a big list of decimals. Put only up to 4 decimal places, so 4 after the point. And then the way you guys are going to calculate that for the decimal, on my 0, since I have many choices, use any of your choices. If you guys are going to use a half, go 0 divided by 2. If you guys are going to use an 8, 0 divided by 8. So for that rule on the decimal, it's obviously 0 divided by anything. If I want to go in the halves, go 1 divided by 2, or 2 divided by 4, or whatever you have for the 8th, or whatever you have for the 16th. Use whatever you want, it gives you the same decimal. So that's what you guys do on the inches. Any questions on that? Yeah, well, divide it for the decimal part. Divide it for the decimal part. So any questions on the inches side? Alright, so the centimeters, it looks the same, right? I will come over and say 0 halves for the halves. And if I want to go in the tens, 0 out of 10, right? This is not out of 16. It's out of 10. There's 10 spaces. And then do the same for your decimal. Kind of like what you do on the inch. And then don't forget on the decimal part, don't forget the 2 answers at the bottom. Okay, any questions? The rulers that I passed out, the rulers I gave you guys at the very, very beginning, keep them. We're going to be measuring things with rulers through the whole week. That's your ruler. Right, like it says, keep it Make sure you guys put it somewhere where you guys are not going to lose it.